Not that it's any surprise, but the real royals, Prince William and Catherine, the Prince and Princess of Wales, have really shown Harry and Meghan up this month. Like, dominated. And in terms of PR, value of effort, and overall impact, the Sussexes have come up so incredibly short in comparison, it's almost pitiful. Certainly embarrassing. First, Harry and Meghan kicked off their New York City presence by accepting an award at the gala, the Project Healthy Minds Gala. The respectable thing to do, undoubtedly, would have been for them to decline the award and offer to present or to attend the event in support instead. That way, the gala could still catch some press from Harry and Meghan volunteering to present an award to someone more deserving than themselves, and still be able to attend and look like they're supporting this cause and this gala, this initiative, this organization. But then Harry and Meghan wouldn't look like greedy weirdos accepting an award that they do not deserve. I really can't quite get over it. The real royals hand out awards. The Sussexes collect them. And it's so bizarre, the very principle of it. The optics of it are so bad for Harry and Meghan. These people who are incredibly privileged and talk big games about being leaders and humanitarians and wanting to do all this philanthropic work and make change are unwilling to be like, let's actually give this stage and this moment to somebody who can have a bigger impact than us. Somebody who's actually doing the work, who's dedicated their lives to these things, who's not just doing this stuff for publicity. But in their speech, which felt a lot more like a class project where they had to take turns reading sections of their essay, they told us that they've been researching and speaking to experts and looking at data. But do we believe them? Absolutely not. They didn't show us anything. And as far as I could find, they didn't post this data that they speak of or this research studies that they're speaking of. They didn't post it anywhere for anybody else to see. It's not available to us anywhere. So that's a bit confusing. But just telling us things doesn't really matter. And it's hard to believe Harry and Meghan when they tell us things. Whereas Catherine, for example, has all the research studies that she has relied on and or funded while working on her Shaping Us campaign and the Early Years Initiative on her website. I have explored it multiple times. You can go on there and you can learn so much. There is a wealth of knowledge, and they summarize it and package it in a way that's really easy to understand, really readable. And then if you want to dig deeper or see why they're suggesting specific things or how they reached these conclusions or see the data and the research yourself, then you can click those links and see it right there on the website. You don't have to go hunting for it. You don't have to take their word for it. Harry and Meghan want us to take their word for it. Catherine, the Royal Foundation, Prince William does this as well. They have all the data and all the information there for you to see right there, to prove it, to back it up. So if you want to learn more about the whys behind these things, you can, but if you want to just educate yourself or learn a little bit more about these things or get some benefit from the information, then it's easy to do that too. So it's the right way to go about it. It makes a lot more sense, and it's very much more practical. And if you're actually trying to create change and you're actually trying to move things forward and make sure people are fully informed so they can make better decisions, then give them the information that they need. Make it easy to understand, and in one spot, make it easy for them to dig deeper if they want. Prince William also launched a video that showed his conversation with a widow who lost her husband to launch the National Suicide Prevention Network, which has massive potential to make a very real difference. I'm excited about this initiative. I think it's a great idea. And this conversation was obviously heart-wrenching and powerful and moving, but it also was showing us so much more and the bigger context. It explained to us why this matters, why it's such a big deal, and why William is involved. And it showed, he demonstrated just by accident through his normal human responses to what her story was. He showed why it means a lot to him and why he cares about this issue. That does so much more than just telling us that I've spoken to all these people and I've spent hours talking to these people, and this is why I'm doing this. Like Meghan said in her speech, who cares? When we actually see these things, it's so much more impactful. It's not just hearing someone talk about something that happened that's a lot more abstract. It makes it a lot more real. It puts it into a lot harsher of perspective, because we're hearing the voices and we're hearing the emotion. We're seeing the emotion on these people's faces. We're able to read their face and see the pain in their eyes. And we're able to understand intellectually the words, the knowledge, the purpose, etc. And we're able to infer a lot more from it. So it's just a totally different story when you're watching someone have a conversation with a real person who has lost their family members to these things. And knowing and having a sense of trust when you walk away from that interview, from watching it, that William really does care and also understand and is advocating for the right types of steps to be taken with this new network to help prevent this problem. And this is a multi-year project for the Royal Foundation that is bringing together several charities and organizations to transform prevention and is meeting a very real need in society. So getting to see that conversation William had drove home the importance of the cause to him, and the human emotion involved demonstrates connection and urgency, which is something you just simply do not get when you stand behind a microphone and list things off in a flat, monotone delivery as Harry did or as Meghan did. If you managed to not drift off while Harold was talking mid-speech, you would still end up with zero emotion. There's no impact from hearing him or Meghan say that they've spent so much time learning about this subject. Cool, neat, who cares? Or how important it is to them. Who cares? It has no connection to the listeners or to the public. It doesn't inspire anything or stir any sort of emotion or connection in them. It just doesn't. It's not the same thing. It's just them listing off stuff in an attempt to justify accepting this award. We don't see any of it. So it's not even very believable, but it's certainly less powerful or impactful. Catherine also published an essay titled The Power of Human Connection in a Distracted World. It's a very good read. Take a look if you have not yet. It's focused on the epidemic of disconnection and how that's impacting youth mental wellness. She wrote this essay with Harvard professor Robert Waldinger, and key points include how excessive screen time has negative impacts, like undermining warm and meaningful relationships that are crucial for development, as well as the fact that even when physically present, we are often mentally absent, whether it's the child is mentally absent or the adult or both within families, but also within friend groups, and how that has a negative impact in development with our youth and in their social skills and their ability to regulate emotions and things of that nature, because they're not seeing and connecting faces, emotion, and words in this multi-layered, multi-dimensional communication style. It's flat, it's 2D, it's just on screens and phones, and oftentimes just text. You're not hearing the intonations, you're not seeing the facial expressions. So it's, from a scientific perspective, very damaging to development in terms of social and emotional well-being and mental health, because you're missing those vast stimuli that it is multidimensional, that really clarifies and brings into sharper focus what people really mean and how they really feel. She also visited HomeStart to coincide with this essay and build upon the series of short films that she released earlier this year, talking about and demonstrating how they are putting into practice the trainings that she was launching over the summer. These types of visits show us the work that she and William are doing, and it demonstrates the implementation of all of the research that goes on behind the scenes, while bringing attention to these organizations and the research at the same time. So it's multi-layered, whereas the Sussexes just say that they did it, and even if you believed them, the impact will never be the same just hearing someone say, this is what I did, as to actually seeing it. Think about like telling a story of a funny video you saw or a funny thing that happened when you were out of the house. It's never as funny as if you actually saw it happen or actually heard the joke firsthand. That's always going to be much more funny than just hearing someone recount the experience. And so it's the same sort of a situation. Seeing photographs or video or something of an experience, or hearing the song that you're talking about or something like that, is going to be so much more meaningful and stimulating for the listener than just explaining it the way Harry and Meghan do, especially if you're talking like Harry does, where there's no intonation and it's super boring to listen to. And we can say similar about the Sussexes hosting a panel rather than the collaborative energy of Catherine and William's outreach. So the Sussexes, they accepted that stupid award, gave a little speech, and then they hosted 3 panels. And by hosted, I just mean they introduced the panel discussion and they didn't actually participate in it, but we're talking about that later. But the procedure of this hosting of a panel is that they get up there and they say some words into a microphone on a stage, kind of introduce the situation and talk a little bit, and then they bounce. Catherine and William sit down in like round table type of discussions. They sit down with the people that they're there to see, often in a circle or face-to-face one-on-one, and they have this like conversational format. It's a completely different story and much smarter. We have seen Catherine and William give speeches. Of course, they do that too. But most of the time when they're doing these types of engagements that are more outreach focused, where they go and visit a specific charity or a business or whatever, it involves a format that's conversational. We saw that in William's interview recently and his interview with Eugene Levy, which also touched on the subject of mental wellness, and his conversation launching the Prevention Network. It's more intimate, it's more real, it's more conversational. Catherine we see sitting alongside everyone in a collaborative, conversational way, where she's discussing with people what they are experiencing in connection to these issues and what their ideas are. Taking the time to learn from real people what is standing between them and getting the help or resources that they need, and finding ways to solve those problems and taking that back to the table, the team that strategizes and researches, and then bringing it back out and seeing what next can be done to improve this issue or this initiative. My grandma used to say there's a difference between talking at someone and talking to someone. And this is it. Meghan and Harry talk at people in these settings. Catherine and William talk with people. Harry and Meghan's format is almost always them sat in a chair or standing up with their microphone, telling people things about themselves or throwing word salad in everyone's face, sharing platitudes that deliver no value whatsoever. What good is it to hear these types of nonsense platitudes that are just kind of anticlimactic sentences? There's no real point or value. It's weak writing, I tell you what. It's not going to actually deliver any sort of value or imagery or emotion or stimuli intellectually. Just because it sounds good or polished or fancy, using some of these word salad terms that Meghan likes, doesn't make it quality. They can't connect with people that they claim that they want to help in these sorts of more formal, sterile types of environments where it's not conducive to real conversations. No matter how you look at it, standing on stage and talking over a microphone at people is not going to kickstart or initiate meaningful conversations or discussions, because there's a barrier there, because you're on stage, because there's a sort of removed, I don't want to say professional, because Harry and Meghan don't come across as professional, but in a way, sort of an attitude about it, of like, I'm here to say what I'm going to say, and then you people can do what you want with that, and I'm going to go. I'm not going to actually have a back and forth with you. But that's where the best of solutions come from, and where actually helping people starts, is in those back and forth conversations that are much more real. And Harry and Meghan have done those a handful of times, to be perfectly fair. I'm not saying they've never done that before, but they have definitely moved more and more to having these more panel discussions where it feels like they're paid to appear and say a few words rather than meaningful conversations. The last time we've seen them do that was Harry in April did it by himself in Brooklyn. And then before that, I think, maybe you could count Meghan's dinner that she hosted with the women's group in November of last year. But that's kind of it. They do a lot more of these sorts of, I'm going to give a speech, I'm going to say a few words, I'm going to do a panel. But anyway, the actual panels that they hosted, this is kind of funny. Harry introduced this one that's called Thriving or Surviving. How are young people doing in the digital age? Do you remember? Sound familiar? Tom Bradby, South Africa, anyone? The Meg obviously wrote this for Harry. It's not enough to just survive. We want to thrive, she said to him. So they're recycling that phrase, which is kind of funny. There's probably a motive for that. The purpose of this panel was to drive home the point that navigating the digital world and mental health is a community responsibility. And I've said this before. It's not that that's wrong or not a good point or anything like that. It's that we already know this. We've all already reached that conclusion. And with Harry and Meghan, it always feels like they're a few steps behind, or they're looking back at what we've already decided or figured out for ourselves. It's time to push forward. It's time to go past that narrative into discussing strategies for how to accomplish that. How do we make it more of a community thing? How do we get more people involved into this and on the same page? Rather than to continue to point at it and say, yeah, that's a problem. Look at it. It's a problem for all of us. It's not just a problem for some of us alone in our homes. It's a problem for all of us together. Like, that does nothing for anybody, Harry and Meghan, since she wrote this for him, obviously. And just saying that it's a community problem is not solutions driven. Prince William's prevention network is very solutions focused. Even while sharing a tragic story, it feels like William is moving the conversation forward in a solutions driven manner. Then the Meg hosted a panel, get ready for this clunky title, How the Great Rewiring of Childhood Caused an International Mental Health Crisis and How We Can Reverse It. Whoa. So in her panel, she used Catherine's phrase, the epidemic of disconnection. Plagiarism, that's crazy. Wonder how that happened. And she repeated her talking points about raising children in the digital age being concerning and challenging. It's basic and meaningless to continue to repeat this every single time. She managed to get the author of The Anxious Generation and essentially used his book as the main talking point and have him as the expert, kind of like walking through the book, which he has done many times. There's so many great podcasts with him walking you through his book and discussing it deeper that this feels redundant. It's been done many times. Not that there's no value, it's been done many times. But her stepping away and not joining the panel discussion, just introducing it, was a step in the right direction. But it still felt like she hindered the conversation by keeping it rooted to pointing at the problems. We really didn't hear that much in the way of solutions, which is the key to moving forward and making a difference. But to be completely fair, having Jonathan Haidt there, the author, to answer questions and provide a more intellectual discussion was an improvement on past attempts, because the Meg introduced the panel and stayed out of the way, whereas in the past, she is always sitting there trying to get involved in the panel discussion, acting like she's an expert when she's not, and we have criticized her for that in the past. So I will say, we have to give credit where credit's due. That was a departure from her usual MO and the wise thing to do. At the same time, it points to perhaps a lack of investment of time and knowledge. For her and Harry to just introduce the panels and not participate at all, it does make you wonder, like, are they actually learning much about this? Do they actually care? Are they passionate about this? Because if they were, you'd think they'd have more to say. If they're really paying attention to this and really learning about it and really trying to move this cause forward, then they would be educated on it and they would have value to deliver to the conversation, because they want to be seen as, and they try to talk about themselves like they are leaders in this space and really meaningful, significant figures in this space. And if that were the case, then you'd think they would have a lot of knowledge and opinions to really tie all this information together and have stimulating questions to ask. And so to be not involved can kind of raise questions of, like, how much work are you actually doing on this behind the scenes? At the same time, letting the experts go forth and whatnot and making sure this information has greater access or spreading it around more, it still can have value. So on one hand, we prefer for them to get much less mic time than they get. And getting out of the way and bringing forth experts is exactly what I myself have suggested from a PR perspective, along with others. On the other hand, it does make you wonder how much they're actually doing behind the scenes. Are they learning about these issues or just using them as opportunities for publicity and to look like they're furthering their humanitarianism? If they were working on these issues as much as Catherine and William are, and they really understood these issues, then they would have value to give during at least one of the 3 panels that they introduced. But what do you think? I think Catherine and William should be proud of the work that they are doing in this space and that they have done this last couple of weeks to sort of tie in mental health to the early years initiatives and to launch the prevention network. I think are really valuable things that are going to make a big difference. And I think that they went about them the right way, and their PR around these things was good. It was quality. It was the right choices. And it's always reassuring to see those conversations, like I said, those more discussion-oriented outings and outreach that Catherine and William do that feels very collaborative. It's so important on so many levels. It sends the message that they are working with people on these things and actually paying attention to what's going to solve the problem and what can be done next. And it always feels like it's moving forward. It never feels like they're just pointing at problems and being like, hey, everybody pay attention, this is a problem. With Harry and Meghan, it always feels like that. And it also feels like they're more just listing off their reasons for doing it all of the time, reminding us of this and that, and just telling us what they did instead of ever really showing it. And there's reasons for that. Harry and Meghan don't do so hot in those types of situations. Meghan doesn't actually know much about this stuff, and neither does Harry, and they end up making fools of themselves. But surely if it really meant a lot to them, then they could work harder at it and get better at it. But leave your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for joining me for today's video. I sincerely hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have a happy day ahead. I'll see you next time. Bye!